If you love those who love you, what virtue lies in that? Even the morally weak love those who love them. And if you're good to those who are good to you, what virtue lies in that? Even the morally weak do that. Love your enemies. Be good to them. Share with them without expecting anything in return. Then your reward will be rich, and you will be sons of the Most High. He is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be compassionate like your Father. How much of that do we practice on our planet? Divine love is a love that we have inside of us because it's the only thing we have to give away. That's all we can give away. Again, Patanjali, when you are steadfast, this is who Jesus was. This is who Rumi was. This is who Shams of Tabriz was. This is who Muhammad was. This is who Buddha was. When you are steadfast, which means there's no ego, when you are steadfast in your abstention of thoughts of harm directed towards yourself and others, that all living creatures will cease to feel fear in your presence. That's who St. Francis was. And some of you I recognize and know, so some of you may have heard part of it, but I never give the same talk twice anyway. So, and if you've heard it before, you're hearing it again because you haven't got it yet. So, otherwise you wouldn't be here, because everything is perfect. It's basically the essence of what I speak about in Wishes Fulfilled, is the idea that there is a higher place. There's a place that I call higher consciousness or extraordinary awareness, extraordinary levels of awareness. And it seems to me that the problem that most of us face in attempting to really fulfill our dharma, our real mission here on this planet and what we're doing here, is that we have been raised to believe in so much in our limitations. And we just haven't been raised to believe that we are God, that we are pieces of God. It's all over the spiritual literature, whether it's the Bhagavad Gita or the Tao Te Ching or the Quran or the Old Testament and the Torah, the book of Torah, or the New Testament and the words of Jesus. It's all throughout it. You know, you've all been told you are God, but we've all been raised to believe, or most of us have been raised to believe that. That's something outside of us. And that we've created these great organizations. I always love Gandhi's comment when they asked him about Christianity. He said, I don't very much like your Christianity. He said, but I love your Christ. Making a huge distinction between, and I used to say years ago that, and they asked me about organized religion, that a truth is a truth until you organize it. And then it becomes a lie. Because so much of the problem, so much of the difficulty, the struggle, the conflict that we see on our planet is all done in the name of God, which is so absurd, isn't it? And yet that's what's going on. And as I told you yesterday, in studying just the 13th century for the last 10 days or so in preparation for what we're going to do in Ephesus, it's just one big conflict after another. And it's not just conflict the way, it's not just wars. It's things like crusades that are just, so vicious, and going through village after village after village, and just, if there's 60,000 people, just killing every single one of them. for God, so that God would be happier if we do that. And I was talking to my friend this morning, Elizabeth, we were having breakfast, and she said, well, at least we're more civilized now than we were then. We don't go around doing that. And I said, well, we've just created newer ways and newer terms to define our abilities. I mean, our technology is almost always based on weaponry and killing each other. And now we just have to push buttons in air-conditioned booths, and we're much more civilized. But we can knock out millions of people at a time. At least in those days, you had to go kill every one of them. Now it's just no, we're not. And the 20th century was the bloodiest century in the history of humanity. More people killed in those wars in World War I, World War II. So, and I really feel that I incarnated into this planet to do something about that. And in writing this whole past summer, I can see clearly now as I look through the things that were happening to me, and I'll be sharing some of those with you a little bit later this week. The things that I was being directed to do. And I don't think that I'm any more special than anyone else and deserve any more credit for any of it. I just seem to have been selected for some reason to, I call it ascended master training. In fact, I read an entire book by Saint Germain called Ascended Master Training. And every time I would read it, I'd say, well, I've been in this. It doesn't say mastery. I'm not talking about that at all. I haven't mastered any of this. But it was, I mean, I've been at this since I was a little boy, and realizing it. And even though I've been encountering difficulties with organizations and with institutions and with customs and so on, all things which I've not paid too much attention to. It's just, there's just something in me. And I think about it because my mother told me the day that I was conceived, because she was basically raped by my father in one of his regular things that he did when my mother was with him. He would come in drunk, and then, you know, they were married, so it's not considered rape, but he would force himself on her, and she had had 2 children, one just who was 3.5 and one who was only 15 months old. And at that time, when I was conceived, was only 7 months old. So I was conceived on the 1st of September, 1939. And she remembers it. And she was horrified that she was pregnant again. There was a depression going on. It was a crazy time in the world. And I don't know if any of you know what that date was, the significance of that date, September the 1st, 1939. Anybody know what happened on that day? It was the beginning of World War II. Yeah, it was the day that Hitler invaded Poland, and World War II started. And I've always had a sense of that. You know, I know we show up here not in the ways we have a tendency to think that this is, you know, it's our mother and our father, and that's how it all works. But I really know better. I have 8 children. I really know better. If any of you've read Wisdom of the Ages, the last chapter in Wisdom of the Ages, I talk about the conception of my last daughter, which was an absolute impossibility. There was just no way that that child could get into this world. We had 7 children, 5 in 8 years. I was 50 years old. There was just, and we were in a place called Brisbane in Australia, and at the Hilton Hotel. and it was 4 o'clock in the morning. I didn't know I was going to tell this, but I often tell it when she's in the room, and she goes crazy. Her name is Sage Ikus. And it was 4 o'clock in the morning. It was actually 4:07. As I looked at because there was just something strange going on in the room. It was like, my wife was in the bed next to me with our son, who was, she was nursing. He was only a year and a half or so old. I was in the other bed with my daughter, Serena, who was like 3. She's here in the room, probably just gagging that I'm telling this story. Are you in here, Serena? Did you leave? Oh, there she is. Yeah, you're not throwing up or anything. About to. She's now 27, and all of a sudden the furniture is being rearranged in the room, and my wife is up, and she takes our son and puts him in the bed, and then picks up Serena by herself, this 3.5-year-old child, and puts her in the bed, and then gets into bed with me. Now, this is something she had never done in her life. So she proceeded to get into bed next to me and start doing things that she had never ever done. I mean, when all of those things happened, that was me doing that. Moving things around and trying to talk her into this and all of that. It was not her nature. And my wife had had surgery, and she had had one ovary removed, and she had had half of the other one removed because she had had a tumor on it. She hadn't had a period in 10 years because she had been either pregnant or nursing for the previous 9 or 10 years. So she was always, she used to say, in 1 decade, I went from a 32 long, no, a 32C to a 32 long or something. It was like 34. I'm sorry, I don't mean to insult her. Anyway, but she always had a great sense of humor about it. So, I mean, the idea of her getting pregnant was absolutely impossible. But just to be absolutely certain that that didn't happen, I just withdrew at that moment, to make sure. And I was going to call my daughter withdrew. So, like, what happened there? I mean, it's like, and this is where when I was speaking the other morning about you get to a place in your life where you get to begin to realize that there is something bigger moving these pieces around, and that who we are not really the product of our parents. They're just sort of intermediaries in this whole thing, and that and so. When you think about when you came into this world, you came in at the time that you opted to come into this world. And it's a hard thing to get. My daughter Serena sitting over there, I used to say to her when she would get upset with me, because, she used to have this whole line, it's like, if I would raise my voice, I wonder what all those people out there would think of Mr. Positive if they could see him here this morning, She'd ask her sister, would you buy a book from someone who yells at his 11-year-old daughter? I wouldn't. But anyway, you get to this sense where you begin to realize that there is something moving these pieces around, and that it's not you. My friend Ramdas often says, all my life I wanted to be somebody. Now I'm finally somebody, but it isn't me. And that, when we look at quantum physics and look at, where we began, we realize that we're not really here as human beings having a spirit. We're spiritual beings. Infinite spiritual beings, and it's such a hard concept for us to get to wrap our heads around and our minds around this idea. In the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu says that you're doing nothing. You're just being done. All of us are just being done. And in reading Rumi and in studying what I've been studying and in writing what I've been writing the past couple of months, it's this enormous awareness has come over me that really our mission is really nothing more than to just reconnect to that source from which we all originated. You know, T.S. Eliot said, "We shall not cease from exploration, but at the end of all of our exploring will be to return to the place from which we originated and to know it for the first time, to know it, to absolutely know it." And he was speaking about death. And when we die, when we leave our bodies. I'm not here today and this week. I'm speaking about something very different. That we can, while we're in these bodies, there is something available to us. Wishes Fulfilled was my effort to just speak to that and to try to delineate it and to make it specific about the kinds of things that we can do to reconnect to our source and to come to know God, not as something external to ourselves, but to know this highest place within ourselves, to absolutely know it. So what I encourage you to do in the next week on this boat is to one day by yourself or with someone that you're close to, someone that that you may have come on this trip with, and go to the stern. That's the back. The place that isn't going forward, that's that one back there. And to just go there and lean over the rail, if there is one. This is the first time I've been on this ship, but there's usually a railing back there. And just observe what you see happening. And just look down at the water. Now I'm telling you, I did this, I was on board ship for almost 2 years in the Navy when I was at 18, 19, and almost 20. And I spent a lot of hours late at night by myself looking at that big ocean. I was in the Pacific Ocean. And it just goes forever, you know. I saw a Discovery Channel story of how the Earth was formed, going back billions of years and so on. And they said these oceans were formed because it rained for 1 billion years. That's a long rain, isn't it? A rain for 1 billion years to fill this planet with. Why? I'm not sure. I mean, they were explaining all of that. But so you look at this huge ocean that we're in, and just look down at the water and ask yourself, what do you see as you're looking at the water? Just please try to do this. And what you will see is something that has a name that we call it. In English, it's called the wake. The wake. And ask yourself 3 questions about the wake. But this is a metaphor for your life, because this ship is a symbol of your life. You are this big physical thing that is moving through the atmosphere, moving through the world. And so just imagine yourself as the ship, and you're looking down in there, and ask yourself these 3 questions. First of all, what is the wake? What is it that you're looking at? You'll see that white, bubbly water, and you'll see it, and you just keep looking at it and looking at it. You can stay out there for hours and hours. And I'll give you the answer. The answer is the wake is the trail that is left behind. Okay, that's what it is. And there's hardly anyone in here can dispute that. Is that correct? I mean, we all have agreement that the wake is the trail that is left behind. The boat's going this way, the wake is back there, and it's just a trail that is left behind. Then the second question to ask yourself what's driving the boat? That is, what's making this boat go in this direction? And I'll also give you the answer to that. It's the present moment energy being generated by the engine and nothing more that is driving the boat. And the third question to ask yourself about this, and the most important question to ask, is it possible for the wake to drive the boat? Okay, so the wake is a trail that is left behind. Can the trail that is left behind make the boat go forward? So now you have to look at your life and all of the things that have transpired in your life and ask yourself what's making your life go in the direction that it's going. Well, it's the present moment energy that is being generated by your mind, by your thoughts, that is making your... And one of the great ironies, I've been studying some of the teachings of a man named Bashar. Anybody in here ever hear of Bashar? Fascinating. Kind of a weird guy, but very, very interesting information. I'm going to be, in one of the satsangs, I'm going to give you a couple of readings from, he's channeling, very much like Abraham Hicks and so on, channeling information. And he talks about these different dimensions of being. He calls them densities. So in this third dimension, or the third density, we have something called cause and effect. So you do this, and it creates this, okay? And we have a tendency to believe that when I do this, it makes this happen. And then he said we move into the fourth density. I'm not going to go into all of this now, but into the fourth density, in which there is no cause and effect, in which every single moment is disconnected from the next moment, and that the present is not created by the past. This is just something to really ponder, because it's going to get really good when we get to the satsang. The present is not created by the past. The past is created by the present in the fourth density, in the fourth dimension. And that's the dimension where you leave the world of cause and effect, and you realize that everything that ever happened to you up until this moment happened to you in the present. And in quantum physics teaches us that there is no such thing as time, and it does, that it's all one, especially in the world of spirit, in the world of God, it's all one. Then the past is something that we are creating now. And the idea, this exciting, exquisite idea, that you can change the past by becoming something different in the present, becomes a reality. Now, you're all saying, that's just too far out, I can't do that, that's just too weird, I can't do that. But the truth of it is, for 1/3 of your entire life here on this planet, while you are asleep, you're able to do just what I just described. You can create any past that you want. And you have left this dead thing laying on the bed. It's just, you've just left, life has left it, it's just there. And you're off someplace else, creating the past that you want, right? And creating the future that you want. I had a dream recently in which my wife was waiting in a van with 5 of our children, who are the age they are now. 30s, 33, 31, 29, 27, 25, 23, 19, 14, 12, 11. It just goes forever and ever. I have 8 children. Okay. So anyway, the van was, and all of them were in there. And I was coming out to meet her, to get into the van with her. She was driving, we were going to go someplace. And I was saying goodbye and telling each one of my children in this room, who were 3 and 5 and 7 and 9 and 11, and then I left them and went from that moment right into this moment where they were 25, 27, 29, 31, 30, all in the same dream. It was all, and the interesting thing about these dreams is that all of it made perfect sense. You relate to that? Can you see what I'm saying? That where higher consciousness is something in which we can create a whole new way of being when we get past, and then he talks, that's the fourth density, or the fourth dimension, where you begin to realize that there is no cause and effect. That everything is just, one moment is not connected to the next. What you did a month ago is not connected to what you are doing today, even though this linear mind of yours has convinced you that it's absolutely why this happened. The fact is, in a quantum sense, everything is being recreated every moment, every moment. Your whole body is being recreated every moment, every moment. And now this may not seem like an important thing for you to know, but when you get a hold of this idea, it's like one of the elements that you need in order to reach a higher level of consciousness is you've got to give up your personal history. You've just got to give it up. I have a quote over here from Castaneda. He said, one day I finally realized that I no longer needed a personal history. And just like drinking, I gave it up. And that, and only that, has made all the difference in my life. If you can just give up this idea that what happened to you in the past is why you are the way you are, it's akin to saying that the thing that is moving this ship is the wake, which is nothing more than a trail that is left behind. And you can change that wake, which we don't think we can do. But remember, for 1/3 of your life, you're able to do it. And to me, higher consciousness is what Thoreau said, it's becoming a waking dreamer. It's what an alchemist is. Someone who can, an alchemist isn't someone who takes something that is bad and throws it out and then brings something good in. An alchemist is someone who takes something that is bad, like lead, and turns it into gold. It's what St. Francis said when where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is darkness, let me bring light. In other words, become an alchemist. Being able to change what is into that which is aligned with your source of being. All right? So, I know that sounds a little out there and far out. I want to do one little reading from Rumi, since the theme of this whole conference, this whole week, is in the trail of our ancestors. And being in these places where you're going to go, when you go into Athens and look at some of these things that were built 2,000 years ago, and when you're in Rome, which I hope you'll spend a few days in, and Rumi, of course, was in the 13th century. So let me read something to you. It's from the Mathnui. That's the poem I mentioned to you yesterday. That is 64,000 lines long. How would you like to write a poem 64,000 lines long, 45,000 verses? And some consider it the greatest thing ever written, you know, like about half the people on the planet, maybe 1/3 of the people on the planet consider it, you know, divine teachings. So this is, it's on something called the purification of the soul. And then I'll move into something you're a little more familiar with. It's the story of the discussion between the Byzantines, who were considered to be the people who had nothing, and the Chinese, who were considered to be the people who were educated and way beyond the Byzantines. The Byzantines were like these low-level people. There's a lot in this, and it's a little bit long, not too long, take a few minutes. So this is directly from the Mathnaway. The Chinese said, "We are the best artists." The Byzantines said, "To us belong the power and the perfection." "I will put you on to trial," said the Sultan, "and I will see which of you is right in your presentation." The Chinese and the Byzantines started to discuss, but the Byzantines left the debate. The Chinese then said, "Give us a room and give the Byzantines one too." There were 2 rooms whose doors faced each other. The Chinese took one and the Byzantines the other. The Chinese asked the king to give them 100 colors. The king opened his treasure in order that they might have exactly what they wanted. Each morning, through his generosity, more colors were taken from his treasures by the Chinese. The Byzantines declared, "No tint or color is necessary for our work. We need only to take the rust off of the walls." They closed the door and started to polish the walls, which became as clear and pure as the sky. There is a distance between colorful and the absence of color. The color is like the clouds. The absence of color is like the moon. Whatever light and splendor you see in the clouds, know that they come from the stars, the moon, and the sun. When the Chinese finished their task, they started to beat their drums with joy. The king came in and saw the paintings. This vision, when he saw it, ravished his mind. Then he went to the Byzantines. They took away the curtain which was separating the 2 rooms. The reflection of the paintings of the Chinese struck the walls which had been purified. Everything the Sultan had seen in the room of the Chinese was more splendid here. It ravished his entire being. The Byzantines, O my father, are the Sufis. They are not scholarly, they have no books, no erudition, but they have polished their hearts, and they have purified them from desire, from avidity, from avarice and hatred. The purity of the mirror is, without doubt, the heart which receives innumerable images. This Moses keeps inside him the infinite form without form of the reflected invisible in the middle of his heart. And although his form is not contained in the sky or the firmament, neither in the sphere or the stars, nor on the globe that reposes for the Pisces. For all these things are limited and known. Know that the mirror of the heart has no limits. Here the understanding becomes silent. Otherwise it will lead you into error, for the heart is with God, or more accurate still, the heart is God. The reflection of each image shines eternally from the heart alone, in the multiplicity as much as outside it. Those who have polished their hearts have escaped from the perfumes and the colors they contemplate. Beauty ceaselessly, they have abandoned the form and the shell of knowledge, they have deployed the flag of certitude. Since the forms of the 8 paradises have shown, they have found the tablets of their hearts to be receptive to them. From the firmament, from the starred sphere, and from the void, they receive 100 impressions. What impressions? What can I say? The vision of God Himself. I don't know, how does that make you, I read that and I just want to cry. It's the purification of the soul that Rumi has placed in my heart. It's this idea that we're all just mirrors, we're all just reflections. And most of us don't understand our soul. And that's what I want to start this presentation out with. What is this thing called your soul? It's the invisibleness within you. See, we can't really get to this place where we move into extraordinary levels of consciousness. And let me use, as I speak up here, this, when I have my hand up here, I'm speaking about elevated levels of consciousness in which all things are possible. Because right from the New Testament, Jesus said it so clearly, with God, all things are possible. Now, I looked that up, and that leaves nothing out. All things are possible. Instantaneous healings are possible. Peace on this planet is possible. I know it's possible. Peace in our hearts is possible. Manifesting anything we put our attention on, absolutely possible. I'm doing it all the time now. It's just one of the weirder things in my life, because all my life I just wanted so much, I wanted to go after things, and now I don't even have to go after things, and they're just there. And then I get them, and I don't even want them. I just pass them out, and I've got all my kids over there who are so happy to help me, to relieve me of any of this, extra that comes into my life. But it's just, well, anyway, extraordinary level of consciousness. And over here at my waist level, when I use my hand this way, I'm referring to ordinary levels of consciousness. Now, you can't get here to this place where you move through ordinary, because I think it's like Jesus put it this way, it's like, be in this world. I am in this world. Be in this world. I really am in this world. I fill out the forms. I pay my taxes. I do all the things that you do at an ordinary levels of consciousness. You do it all. Obey the rules, get along, be nice to people, all of those things. But you're in this world, but you're not of this world. And the truth of it is, that's true of every single person in this room and everybody watching this. You are all in this world, and none of you are of this world. You're not of this world. I guarantee you, you're not of this world. My beautiful mother, who got her family back together again after my father walked out on 3 little boys and my mother in the middle of a depression, 1940, when I was born, and never came back, and never made a phone call. I only met him at his grave many years after he died. And she had to place myself and my next oldest brother in an orphanage and in foster homes and live a divided life. She worked as a candy girl, selling candy at Kresge's, a 5 and 10 cent store on the east side of Detroit, and became a secretary at Chrysler, and just worked and worked and worked to try to get her family back together again. But I was 10 years in an orphanage, and it was what I signed up for. Just like my daughter Sage, who signed up. It's like, if you guys aren't going to get it on, then I'm going to just have to take care of this myself, I guess, because I'm coming here and you are the one that I picked and you are the one that I picked, so wake up and move, get over there and get going, I know that sounds so silly, but there's like this whole awareness that this is what Rumi has taught me. This is why I'm so poetic here today. So I guess because it's just this awareness. It's all about surrender. It's all about surrender, every bit of it. It's about letting go of this ego, letting go of this body, letting go of your possessions, letting go of all of that, and really understanding what it means to be in this world but not of it. So my beautiful mother got us all back together again in 1949. And I was just 9 years old, and married my father again in a different body, just same guy in a different body, a guy who was drunk and wasn't responsible, and but it was the price she knew she had to pay in order to get her family back together. And then he was gone after a while. But anyway, she struggled and worked and finally got us all back together. We lived in a box, tiny little house, 5 of us, and she worked all these years, and she just died just 8 weeks ago. Yeah, I just didn't think it would be very difficult, and in truth it isn't. I said this at dinner last night. It's like, I actually envy her. I really do. Because she's in the mystery now. She knows it. When we do Rumi in Ephesus, I will read to you what he said about what he wanted said about him after he died. And I will read to you how he saved the city of Konya in Turkey, not too far from where we'll be, in Ephesus. And having just written the foreword to a book that I really hope all of you read, or have read, will read. It's Anita Moorjani's Dying to Be Me. I won't go into it now because I'm just conscious of the time, and I haven't even gotten started yet. We got all week, though. So, my mother was 96 years old, in her 97th year, and on July the 22nd, I was in Hawaii, and she played bingo 2 days before. But it was just, and she knew because I talked to her about it every day, how excited she must be. And she had read Dying to Be Me. She was like telling everybody in this, she was in a center for assisted living for people in their 90s and so on. And she would make all of them read it, and she'd read to them, and like, what are you afraid of? And it's just, it's a wonderful book, wonderful book. It's got a limited audience. It's only for people who are going to die. And I think it's the book that whenever someone does die and you go to a funeral, that you'll take it. Because who knows what to say at a funeral, right? Oh, well, he was nice. You don't know what. You'll just take this, and whoever it is that misses the person that is left will just be so grateful that you gave them this wonderful, wonderful book. I wrote the foreword to it. Anyway, so my mother passed away on July the 22nd, and on July the 24th, they put her into a bag, her body into a bag, and they cremated her. And they gave us a little bag, a little vial of dust. Surely that's not my mother. Emily Dickinson, the famous American poet, holding up a handful of dust. This quiet dust was gentlemen and ladies and lads and girls, was laughter and ability and sighing and frocks and curls. This passive place, a summer's nimble mansion where bloom and bees fulfilled their oriental circuit, then ceased, like these. So, if my mother is not this dust, and the ashes that came from the body that she was in for the 96 years that she was on this planet, who is she? And it's the question you've got to be able to ask yourself and answer for yourself. And who you are is a question most people cannot answer. And because we can't answer it, we accept what other people have told us who we are. And what other people have told us who we are comes from people who told them who they are because they couldn't figure out who they were either. Because they were so terrified and so believing in what their senses told them that who you are is this thing called your body. Now, I'm in a 72-year-old body today. I have been in a lot of bodies, and so is my mother. I mean, I have pictures of my mother all over my apartment, on the walls. You know, there's a picture of her when she was 6 years old in 1922. There's a picture of her in 1928 when she moved from Canada to America and wrote a little poem about the election of 1928. Smith or Hoover, who will it be? Both are running for the presidency. Smith is the lean one, Hoover's the fat. My, such an uproar. Where are we at? That was my mother at 10. And she wrote a ton of poetry, beautiful poetry. So I see a picture of her at 10, I see a picture of myself at 10, I remember being in a 20-year-old body, and a 30-year-old body, and a 40-year-old body. And you can't find one cell of the body that I was in when I was 20 years old, 50 years ago. There's not one cell left. You go out there and I can't find it. It had all kinds of flowing stuff coming out of my head, and you know, it's like it's gone. Instead, it's growing in my ears. What's going on here? And in my nose. I mean, what do I need it there for? You know? Lao Tzu said, "You're not doing anything. You're just being done." When you look at your body, you have a real sense of an awareness of that, don't you? When you look at your body, you know that, you know, I mean, you can fix them and you can change them, but, you know, that like if they're drooping, it's like whatever, and it's like if your hair turns a certain color, you can change the color of it, and you can mask all of that, but you really know deep inside that you're not doing anything. You're just being done. That's one of the things that the Tao says, that the Tao is just another term for God. The Tao does nothing. It leaves nothing undone. It leaves nothing undone. Makes the planets stay in alignment, the sun comes out, the oceans are filled, the life goes on, fish reproduce themselves, roses show up, and there's nobody out there doing anything. It does nothing. My son has mastered this, by the way. He's a Taoist master. He's 25. I say, Sans, come on. Get help. Let's go. Do something. We got work to do here. Come on. I do nothing. I leave nothing undone. He has a T-shirt that says, don't just do something, stand there. So the question of who we are is can't be answered in physical terms, and it can't be answered with the senses. Your senses will lie to you. They will tell you something, and it's just not true, you know. I mean, our senses even tell us right now that we're sitting still when we're hurling through this ocean, right, at 20 knots. But we're also, so is the whole ocean hurling through space at something like 11 or 12,000 miles an hour. And it's also orbiting around the sun and turning on its axis. So it's turning, orbiting, and hurling all at the same moment. And your senses are saying, I'm just sitting here. William Blake, the great English poet, 1777. To see the world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wild flower, to hold eternity in the palm of your hand, and infinity in an hour. We are all led to believe a lie when we see with, not through the eye. which was born in a night, to perish in a night, while the soul slept in beams of light. Your eyes were born in a night to perish in a night. You don't see with your eyes. You have to see through your eyes. The part of you that is processing what I'm saying here right now has no form to it, has no beginning, it has no end. There's an infinite part of you. There's an invisible part of you. And until you're comfortable with it and know it and understand that it is the creator, the creation takes place through this creative process within you, called your mind, called your thoughts, called your spirit, called your soul. And one of the things that I have learned is that it's necessary to understand what your soul is to follow your excitement. Now hear this. Your excitement is who you are. Just let that in. We're getting very philosophical. I love it when we get like this, especially when I know we have lots of time, so we can just take it, just... Your excitement is who you are. You're not this body. My friend Ram Dass, you all know Ram Dass? He lives on Maui with me, and I put something in one of my books called Inspiration, because he had a stroke in 1997 and he couldn't take care of himself anymore, and he had donated everything he'd ever earned to charity, to the Seva Foundation, just to help little blind children in Nepal get eyesight and so on. His book, Be Here Now, he didn't take any royalties for it. He never was paid for any of his lectures. He was just one of those people. His teacher in India, Neem Karoli Baba, told him, just serve people. Trust God, serve people. Give. Give what you have away. Don't hold on to any of it. And he took it very seriously. His father didn't understand it. His father called him rum-dum. So I put out a plea in my books and on the internet and so on, and people came in, and several $1 million came in for Ram Dass. He has a home. He just turned 80 in April. And I was at his dinner, and so many of his devotees and just people that have known him, and we're very, very close. I love this man so much. And he has trouble speaking now, and he speaks a little slower, but every time I do a seminar in Maui, he comes out there and he speaks to them, and he gets a standing ovation. He speaks slowly. He's in a wheelchair. So we all went around the table, and we were asked to say something to him on his 80th birthday. And I gave a couple of lines from an Irish poet named William Butler Yeats, in a collection of poetry called Sailing to Byzantium. I just talked about the Byzantines. I said, Ram Dass, an aged man, is but a paltry thing, a tattered coat upon a stick, unless soul claps its hands and sings, and louder sings, for every tatter in its mortal dress. We're just tattered coats on a stick. It's the soul. It's this invisibleness. It's what causes you to feel passion. It's following your excitement. And it's something you can do at any time. And when you do, I guarantee you these two things. It will be effortless, and you will always be supported. It's always an effort when you are not following your excitement. What is it in here What is that creative spark that just makes you want to do something, or you just feel drawn to do it? And the more you pay attention to this spark, this inner excitement, the more it will support you, and you'll find yourself doing amazing things, like really amazing things. Here's what Patanjali, the great 3rd century BC Indian scholar, great beautiful soul, who was the father of meditation, one who taught me the japa meditation and the I am meditation. He said, when you are inspired means in spirit. When you are inspired, that means when you are following your excitement. When you are inspired by some great project, some extraordinary project, all of your thoughts break their bonds. Your mind transcends limitations. Your consciousness expands in every direction. And you find yourself in a new and a great and a wonderful world. And then he said, and this is what I mean by being effortless, he said, dormant forces, faculties and talents come alive, and you discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be, or I say were ever taught that you could become, because you were not raised to believe in your divinity. You were raised, as Rumi said in that thing I read between the Chinese and the Byzantines, you were raised to believe in your limitations. And you don't know that within you, you have God. You are God. God is not an external concept. It's what the ego has taught us that it is. So that if you can answer the question, who am I? Who am I? And understand that who you are is a divine speck, if you will, a divine fragment of the universal consciousness, and that everything else about you that you own, that you've done, that you've accomplished, that other people think of you, all of that stuff is just like, it's just dust. This is not my mother. This is not my mother. And you want to know something? I'll tell you this. My mother came to me 2 weeks ago. I was in Glasgow, Scotland, getting ready to give a talk. My mother's mother, my grandmother's maiden name was Macmillan. And her mother was from Glasgow, from Scotland. And Nancy and Michelle, when they were in Scotland, they went out, I don't know how they did it, but they went to some store and they got the Scottish clan tartan. And you can go on the internet on my on my Facebook and you can see it. And I wore it when I went out there. I didn't even know there was such a thing as a clan, but I guess they knew each other by the plaids that they wore in Scotland. Remember Braveheart? That's one of the really great movies about what those, the fierce kind of people that they were up there in Scotland. And the night before I was giving a speech, it was I had come from Maui to Washington, D.C., gave a lecture in Washington, and went from Washington to Scotland. Now, I don't know if you've looked at a map lately, but that's halfway around the world, and that's 11 time zones. So that's literally when you're going to sleep, I was getting up, and vice versa. It's a total reversal of time. So I was in that state where you're sort of sleeping and you're not sure and all of that. It's like, it's like when you do, especially when you do a 12-hour reversal in just a couple of days. So I was asleep and I was awake. And I talked to my mother about this before she died, about coming to me and making a sign, the day before she died. Because she knew that she was with hospice. Hospice had said this was, her body was shutting down. And I was driving into the home that we lived in from when I was 10 till I was about 17, and I had all of these keys in my pocket, and I couldn't get the key. I couldn't get the key into the door. This is a very common dream, I've since learned, especially when someone has departed and comes back. And I put this key in, and it wouldn't work. And I reached in, and it's like an endless string of keys, just so many keys. But I couldn't get anything to work, and I was just so pissed off, and nothing's working here. And all of a sudden, the door opens. And then there's a screen door, and she opens the screen door. And she holds her hands out, and my mother was a beautiful woman. She looked a lot like Elizabeth Taylor looked in her heyday. Okay, and she was about 45. I say it because that just seems like that's the number that came to me. She was about 45 years old, and she just looked at me, and it was so real. It was just, and now I was awake, and she was there, and I said to her, this was the mistake I made. I said, and I didn't say it, but I was thinking it, like I was thinking, you're dead. What are you doing in the house? You're dead. You're supposed to be dead. And that was my thoughts, and she could read that, because in the fifth and beyond dimensions, there's 12 of them. When you get fifth, sixth, seventh dimensions and so on, this physical stuff is just, you don't have to even bother with it at all. Your thoughts are just transmitted to each other. Carl Jung called this like synchronicity of thought and so on, where you can communicate telepathically and so on. Well, there it's instantaneous. Higher awareness is, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but higher awareness is when you place your thought upon something that you would like to have manifest into your life, no matter what it is, and it instantaneously shows up, which is what happens in your dream state. So there's not this long cause and effect thing. I have a thought, and now I got to go to work, I got to get up, and I got to do all of this stuff and make it happen and all of that, which is what we do in this dimension. In this dimension that we're going for this week, you put your attention on something. It's called in India they call it Siddhi consciousness. Siddhi, S-I-D-D-H-I, Siddhi consciousness. It's like it's instantaneous. There it is. It's called Christ consciousness. Rumi has one of his poems in there where they talk about someone, he's trying to get, in the Matnavi, he's trying to convince somebody to come, and they said, Jesus is here. He speaks about Jesus a lot in his poetry. When Rumi died, people from all over the world came, whether they were Buddhists, whether they were Muslims, whether they were Catholics, whether they were Jews, whatever the people he was so revered as God on earth, truly. And he is saying in one of his poems, the man says, I can't go, I'm sick, I'm dying. And he said, well, Jesus needs you. Jesus needs you. He needs a corpse so that he can make it come alive. So he's speaking like this, at this elevated level of consciousness that all of us have the capacity to do. And we've all been given, that's why we sleep. So we've been given this opportunity to enter into this world where whatever we place our thoughts on is instantaneously there. And it's not like, you wake up and say, oh, that wasn't real. The only way you know it isn't real is when you wake up. Lao Tzu said, I went to sleep and I dreamt that I was a butterfly. And then I awoke and now I don't know. Am I a man who dreamt he was a butterfly, or am I a butterfly dreaming that I'm a man? It could be either way. Because you're so convinced of it. And I'm saying to you that higher awareness is that state of consciousness in which you can, and so there was my mother, and I looked at her, and she had this beautiful, she had like a black dress on with a buckle up here. I can tell you what the room looked like. I can tell you where she was standing. This wasn't just a thought. I mean, it's like, you have a dream and then you can't remember it so quickly, how that happens all the time. This wasn't like that at all. This was, there she was. She was definitely sending me something, and I was thinking, you're dead, you can't be, you're dead. And I went to grab her arms, and as I was thinking, you're dead, her arms started turning into the 97-year-old woman that she was, which her arms were sort of wrinkled up, and and she shriveled up because she was about 6 inches shorter than she was when she was in her 40s, and then her face morphed, and she just dissolved. And I was telling Louise Hay about this at dinner in London, and she said, the next time it happens, don't think you're dead. Don't think those thoughts, and don't say those words. Don't think, because you can't communicate with someone who's living in an infinite space and talk about death, because death talks about beginnings and ends. And you are in a universe that is endless. And the interior, what I call your interiority within you, has no form to it. And this is basically the essence of what I wanted to say here to you this afternoon, which is that your soul is your excitement. Your excitement is that inner feeling. It's just a thought. In Greek, the word enthusiasm breaks down to entheos, God, within. The God within. You see it, I've checked all of this stuff out on the internet all over the place, when I was doing the etymology of all of this to write about it. That it's... So the God within you is your enthusiasm, it's your passion, it's your bliss, it's your excitement. And when you are acting on that, I don't know if you've seen The Shift. How many have seen The Shift? Oh, wow, you've all seen The Shift. In The Shift, that story of Ivan Illich is such a profound story, of Leo Tolstoy's The Death of Ivan Illich, where he was a judge in Moscow, and he hated his life, and he hated his wife. Particularly, he hated his wife because he was so angry at his wife, because she had pulled all the strings and arranged everything for him to get this, first to get into law school, and then to become a lawyer, and then to become a judge. And she was always, because she came from a place where she had that kind of pull. So here he was a very respected judge, and he hated his life. He hated everything about his life. And and you know the end of the story, you know what's going to happen. It's by the title. It's The Death of Ivan Illich. And he's lying on his deathbed, and he's got holding his wife's hand, this woman that he has despised his whole life, because he was a poet. And he wanted to just be a poet. And he couldn't do that because he was so forced into this other life that he had allowed to take place. And he's looking up into his wife's eyes, and the last thing he says to her as he closes his eyes and dies, what if my whole life has been wrong? And he died. I was 19 when I read that. And I wrote myself a note on a pad of paper. It said, Dear Wayne, don't die with your music still in you. Don't die with your music still in you. That is, there's not a person in this room, there's not a person watching this anywhere who doesn't have something internally within them that excites them. And nobody else has to get it, nobody else has to understand it, nobody else has to agree with it, nobody has to go along with it. There's something inside of us, and when we are not living our excitement, we are not supported by the universe. It becomes sticky, it becomes hard work. It's like nothing seems to work. You're always running into obstacles. But when you are following your excitement, whatever it is, like, I gotta guarantee you that right now, here, in this moment, today, right now, it's the only moment there is. now. This is my excitement. This is my excitement. This is why I'm here. I'm not here because of what I get paid. I'm not here because of any prestige that comes my way. I'm not here to impress anybody. I'm not here for anything other than this is who I am. This is who I am. Writing, speaking, this is not what I do. This is not what I do. You can tell. It's just what I am. And I know why I showed up here on the 1st of September 1939. By the way, that's when William Butler Yeats died. He saw it coming, the great Irish poet. September 1st, 1939. And just left. It's too much for him. He was such a man of peace. So, this thing called your soul, or your interiority, the invisibleness, that has occupied how many bodies do you think you've been in since you showed up here? You know, one this big, one that did this, one that stands like this, you know, one that, and it's like you've been in all of these bodies, and you just keep occupying new bodies, and what happens is that we take on this thing called an ego. And the ego is what we forget as we take on this ego. Muktananda called the ego the false self. We really have come to believe, William Blake was right, we've been led to believe a lie. We've taken on a false self. And this false self says that who I am is what I have, what I accomplish, what I do, what I own. Who I am is what other people think of me. Who I am is my reputation. Who I am is all of my stuff. Who I am is separate from everybody else. And so I have to compete with everybody else and go to war with everybody else because I've just got this belief that we're all separate from each other. In the United States of America, 1 soldier a day commits suicide on active duty. 1 a day. Every day in Afghanistan, a soldier is committing suicide. There's a Time magazine had a cover story. 1 a day, it was called. Why is 1 soldier a day killing himself? Because he has been forced into being something that he is not. What is his original nature? What is all of our original nature? See if I brought that with me. Yes, I did. It's from the Course in Miracles. It's one of my favorite quotes from the Course in Miracles. So I know it, but I want to make sure I don't misquote it. The memory of God. God is really it's like a memory. It's like remembering where you came from. What is your original nature? Lao Tzu called these our original nature. The memory of God comes to the quiet mind. It cannot come where there is conflict. A mind at war with itself remembers not eternal gentleness. What you remember is a part of you, for you must be as God created you. Let all this madness be undone for you, and return in peace to the remembrance of God, still shining in you, in your quiet mind. Isn't that great? We take young people and we give them guns and we tell them to go kill those people. The Native Americans used to say that no tree has branches so foolish as to fight among themselves. They knew that we're all branches on a tree called humanity. What are we doing? Telling people that these are your enemies. We all come from the same place. We all return to the same place. We all share the same tree. There's not Muslims out there, and Jews and Catholics and Buddhists and so on. There's not Greeks and Romans and Asians and Spanish and Americans and Canadians and Spanish and Italians. We're just so we're so attached to this stuff that we have been handed to us forever, that who we are these labels that we've placed on ourselves, when in fact there's only oneness. God is only oneness. And whenever we let go of our oneness and try to get to, in the Tao, most of you know, the day I turned 65, the day after I turned 65, May 11th, 2005, I gave up everything I owned. Everything. 20,000 books, all of my clothes, all of my furniture, everything. My secretary, she's in the back. Her name's Maya. You probably, some of you will talk to her. I handed her the key. I said, Maya, I'm gone. Give it all away. Who do I give it to? I said, take all those beautiful clothes that so many people have given to me and give it to the homeless people living under the bridge. Give my furniture away. Give it all away. I went to Maui. And for one full year, I lived the Tao Te Ching. Tao, T-A-O. It means the Great Way in ancient Chinese. 2,500 years ago, the Great Way. T-E means the virtue of. Ching, in ancient Chinese, means book. The book of living the virtue of the Great Way. There are 81 verses in the Tao Te Ching, each of them on one page. Some of them only 4 lines long. Some call it the wisest book ever written. And I decided to take each one of those verses and live it, and then write my essay on how to apply it in the year 2006. It's called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, if you haven't read it. The Tao Te Ching. And the opening line of the Tao Te Ching, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. Because it's like our linear minds cannot grasp the concept of oneness because we're so embroiled in two-ness, or four-ness, and ten-ness. The Tao that can be named is not the Tao. The minute that you put a name on something, you have two. You have the thing, and you have the label. The great Danish theologian Søren Kierkegaard once said, "Once you label me, you negate me. Once you put a label on me, you negate me." And the Tao is filled with that. God, in reading Rumi this last week, I felt like he and Lao Tzu must have been brothers. And then I find out that he was a friend of Shams of Tabriz. That Rumi and Shams and St. Francis and Lao Tzu and Jesus and Buddha, they're all telling us the same thing. Someone sent me a book that said Jesus and Lao Tzu. And on the left-hand side of the page was all the sayings of Lao Tzu. And on the right-hand side was all the sayings of Jesus. They were almost identical. And Jesus came along 500 years after Lao Tzu. I'm not saying he was plagiarizing, but what I'm saying is that there are eternal truths. So the soul, the invisible part of you, is the part of you that is infinite. Now, this is really the crux of what came up here to speak about this afternoon. The invisible part of you, the part of you that's watching, the part of you that is not what you have and what you do and what other people think of you, that's the ego. Remember, the ego is edging God out, E-G-O, edging God out. In the first 9 months of your life, while you are inside your mother's womb, There was nothing for you to do. There was nothing for your mother to do. Something was taking care of everything. You didn't have to say, oh my God, I hope my nose doesn't come in over here in the back of my head, and I hope, it's like it was all just being taken for you, just being done. Everything. And then you came into this world, popped out, then your parents said, great work, God. We'll take over from here. And in the process of taking over, they taught you your false self and the culture that you were immersed in. And only a handful of us, wow, I didn't even know I included myself in there, but I guess by now I'm starting to. Only a handful have ever really grasped the message that there are no limitations. That which is infinite has no limitations. So hear this, really hear this. Your soul, the invisible part of you, your excitement, is who you are. It's who you are, not this thing, this dust, who you are. Resists anything that tries to make it finite. What does finite mean? It means it stops someplace. It's finite. This microphone starts here and it ends here. It's like it's finite. This big boat that we're on is finite. The clothes that you wear, the body that you have, it's finite. It begins and it ends. It's finite. The part inside of you that is just occupying this finiteness is infinite. And what does infinite mean, infinite mean? It means it doesn't stop any place. As soon as you stop at some place, it's finite. How are you going to stop your excitement? How are you going to say there, that's it, it doesn't exist anymore? Can't turn it off. It's who you are. And your soul, this is what I wrote. The ideal of the soul, the thing that it asks for, is neither knowledge or light or happiness. The ideal of the soul is space, immensity. The one thing it needs is to be free to expand and to reach out and to embrace the infinite. The ideal of the soul is infinity, because that's what it is. It is miserable when it is circumscribed, to say that carefully, I've missaid that several times. It is miserable when it is circumscribed or restricted. Okay? Once you understand this, see, before I had children, I had 8 theories about how to raise children. Now I have 8 children, no theories. Okay? So, the one thing I've learned as a parent is that nobody likes being told what to do. Have you noticed that, parents? And if you're not parents, have you noticed how you react to your parents when they tell you what to do, or what to be, or how to think, or what you can do, or what you can't do? This is like a universal thing. I see heads nodding. Everybody knows that this is a universal thing, that the ideal of the soul is infinity, because it's your excitement. It can't stop any place. As soon as you try to put it into a box, as soon as you try to circumscribe it, as soon as you try to tell it what it is, your soul will cry out with, don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me what I can be. I don't want to hear it from you. I don't want to hear it from I don't want to hear it from any books that you give me. I don't want to hear it from the church. I don't want to hear it from my culture. I don't want to hear it from, and this is true of everyone. It's your soul crying out and saying, for God's sakes, don't fence me in. Oh, give me land, lots of land, and the starry skies above. Let me ride through the wide open spaces that I love. That's your soul's. That's its theme song. I'm going to write a book on that. I am. It's the next thing I'm going to write. If I finish this, I can see clearly now. It's called Don't Fence Me In. And when I mean don't fence me in is don't put any labels on me. Don't tell me what I can't do. Don't insist that, and it's why relationships don't work. They just don't work. By and large, they don't work because, and it's like all of the great spiritual masters, it's never a surprise that none of them were in relationships. Now they're telling us Jesus was married. I doubt it. I don't mean they can't, but I mean loving somebody really means, really loving somebody means I love you so much that I allow you to be whatever you choose to be, no matter how much it conflicts what I think you should be or what I would like you to be. I love you for that. And I impose no restrictions, no conditions. I put no boxes that you're going to fit into. I don't do that because I don't want to stultify your soul. My children, every single one of them, they will tell you. Serena over here, she will tell you when she applied to law school and busted my chops to help her to get into law school and to write the letters for it and all of that, and she got there for 2 weeks and just decided this is not what I want to do. I can't do this. I can't. That's not something. Where are you, Serena? Get the microphone. Come on up here. Tell them. Grab it. It's right there. She'll tell you. She's writing a book about this. This is Serena, my beautiful 27-year-old daughter.
Hello?
Come on up here.
He did not tell me he was going to do that.
Do what your father tells you to do.
I'm not writing a book about law school.
You don't correct your father.
What'd you say? Tell them what?
Tell them, when you decided that wasn't what you wanted to do and all the changes you've made in your life. How were you raised?
Well, I decided I wanted to go to law school. And I applied and got a scholarship, partial scholarship. And
the other one was Wayne Dyer's scholarship.
And I went, and I was there for about 6 weeks, and I just really felt like everything I was being told in the classroom was the opposite of how I felt. And it got to a point where I would actually pull up to the school, and it wasn't that I didn't like school because I have a master's degree and I loved every minute of that. It was that I didn't like being told that right or wrong is based on what is written in a book and not based on the person or the experience. And they would give an example of a case, like I can think of one quickly, that was a contracts law in this contracts classroom, and this man's house was burning down, and he was in his 70s, and his wife was inside, and he got out, and his house was burning, and he screamed out. There was a crowd that had gathered outside, and he screamed out, "If anybody can help me get my wife out, I'll give you anything." And a man came up and said, "Really, you'll give me anything if I can get your wife out?" Now, this is a true case. And he said, "Yes, I'll give you $100,000 if you get my wife out." This man goes in. He happens to be an off-duty firefighter, and he carries his wife out. And his wife had passed away. And the off-duty firefighter took him to court and said, "I want that $100,000. And now the contracts professor said, "Now who agrees that he should get that $100,000? Or who doesn't agree?" And I was the only person that raised my hand. And everybody else said, no, it was a contract and he should get it. That's the way the world works. And I was like, no, he should not get this money. This is an accident. He didn't mean this wasn't a binding contract. Anyways, when I realized I was like the only person at this Catholic law school that thought that we should always side with like humanity and not the law, I realized that it wasn't the place for me, so I left. But I called my dad before I left. Actually, I text messaged him. And I said, because I hadn't really quit anything before besides like sports. And I said in my text, this isn't for me. And I feel sick every day that I go. Now, I know there are good lawyers probably in this room, so I'm not trying to knock it. It just wasn't for me. And would you be mad if I left? And what'd you say back?
I don't remember. What did I say?
You said...
You got the mic. Shit, you're taking over. I'm just going to go sit down.
Wow. You said, Serena, you have a dharma. You have a place inside of you that knows exactly what you should do, and you came here to live a dharma. If this isn't it, go find it. But I will never be mad at you for going after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, thank you, honey. What's interesting, though, and what I want them to hear, come over here. What I want them to hear is what you felt like when your excitement was something that you could no longer follow. What was going on to your body? What was happening to you?
I got pneumonia. I got really sick. And I had gone to the doctor actually the week before because I was feeling so sick, and I felt like, maybe if I am not liking law school so much, I'm actually having a physical reaction to doing something that doesn't agree with my soul. And that was kind of like the way that we were raised. If you're actually getting sick, physically sick, and I had like fluid in my lungs, so I really was physically sick. If you're getting sick doing something that doesn't feel natural to you, you should stop doing it. Right?
You're so cute. Come over here. Get off of my stage. You're back. Great job, Serena. She had no idea I was going to call her up here. So that wasn't planned at all. So I was in Maui, and I have a dear friend. Her name is Carrie, and she has 2 daughters. One daughter's name is Kylie, and she was 6. She's now 14, but she was 6 then. And she has a sister named Kamiley, who's 4. And my grandson was there also, named Carter, and he calls me Bampa at 4. So Carrie said to me, she said, I'd really like to go shopping, and I never get a break from these kids. She said, do you think you could watch them for a couple of hours? And I promise I'll be back as fast as I can. I said, take the whole day. I said, what is the problem? She said, yeah, no, you don't understand my girls. She said, they fight all the time over everything, I said, but they're 4 and 6, I had, with 5 and 8 years, I had kids everywhere, and all of their friends. My house has just been kids forever. So I said, just go shopping, just go. She said, but you don't understand. It's going to be hectic. I can't even take them to restaurants. I can't even, because they just fight all the time. These kids are just always fighting. I said, well, I'll just handle it, So she went, and they went off to the pool, and all 3 of them over to the pool. And within 7 or 8 minutes of Carrie being gone, Kylie comes running over to me, and she says, Kamiley just pushed me. Kamiley just splashed me. That's not right. She's always doing that. She's so bad. She just splashed me. I said, whoa, wait a minute. I said, honey, I'm only here to make sure you don't drown, I put my hand up. I said, splashing at a pool, it's in the way of things. She looked at me like I had 6 heads. I said, I'm really not interested in this at all. She said, but you don't understand. I said, oh. I said, no. I said, I'm a Taoist master. You have the anchor of the universe located within you. You're going to have to resolve this yourself. She went away shaking her head like, Oh my God, she went back to the pool. 5 more minutes later, her younger sister's coming over, sobbing, tears running down her face. Carter pushed me, and Kylie isn't even talking to me, and it's not fair, and I don't like this, and they never do it, they never treat me right, it's not right. I said, oh, Kamaili, honey, Kamaili, hold it right there, hold it. What? I said, I want you to try to imagine how little I care. She just looked at me and like, I don't know. And then 5 more minutes later, my grandson, he comes running at me. Bumpa, both of them are. He looked at me and he knows because he's been around me enough. He just went, oh, he doesn't give a shit about this stuff at all. It's like, and off they went. And basically, I have one philosophy of raising children, which is guide, then step aside. Guide, then step aside. I am not here to solve every dispute of yours, and you have the power and the capacity within you to resolve all of this. It is not going to be, I am not going to be dragged into this kind of a way of being that, and this is what Serena was speaking about, is like, my children have always known that they are not here. They will tell you, they didn't even bring their report cards home to me. Because I really don't care about whether they get a B or a C or an A, or whether they get into that school or this school. I went to a school that nobody ever even heard of, you know? It's like, I used to tell my kids, I went to Wayne State University, and I had them convinced for 10 years that they named it after me, you know? But we all have this within us. We all have the anchor of the universe located within us. And when, you know, the great Lebanese poet Khalil Gibran said, your children are not your children. They are the products of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not for you. They come through you. And in relationships, he said, let there be spaces in your togetherness, and let the oceans roar in those spaces. What does that mean? It means you have to allow, if you're going to be in a love relationship with somebody else, you can't put them into a box. You can't. You gotta love them for what they are. And if loving them, if loving them means loving them when they decide not to love you, that's the kind of love you have to have. That's divine love. That's the love that Jesus wrote about. You know, when Osama bin Laden was killed and you saw people jumping up and down in the streets and celebrating, and when they got Gaddafi, and I was on my radio show, and even when my son was talking about how happy he was and everything, and I said, no, read the Tao. In the Tao it says that a victory in war is to be celebrated by mourning, because it still gives evidence that we have not found our divine nature. If you love those who love you, what virtue lies in that? Even the morally weak love those who love them. And if you're good to those who are good to you, what virtue lies in that? Even the morally weak do that. Love your enemies. Be good to them. Share with them without expecting anything in return. Then your reward will be rich, and you will be sons of the Most High. He is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be compassionate like your Father. How much of that do we practice on our planet? Divine love is a love that we have inside of us because it's the only thing we have to give away. That's all we can give away. Again, Patanjali, when you are steadfast, this is who Jesus was. This is who Rumi was. This is who Shams of Tabriz was. This is who Muhammad was. This is who Buddha was. When you are steadfast, which means there's no ego, when you are steadfast in your abstention of thoughts of harm directed towards yourself and others, that all living creatures will cease to feel fear in your presence. That's who St. Francis was. I've been to Assisi. Some of you were there with me. How many? Who was there? Look, so many of you were there with us last year, just a year ago, a little over a year ago. Do you remember the lecture in Assisi? When I stood there and St. Francis just entered my body, and literally I just lost it. I couldn't speak for 7-8 minutes. It was overwhelming, the love. And everyone in the room just stood up and just held their hands out. You can reach this level of consciousness. There's a great Indian poet. His name was Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore. In 1927, he wrote a collection of poetry called the Gitanjali. This is what he said about the ego. I went out alone on my way to my tryst. But who is this me in the dark? I step aside to avoid his presence, but I escape him not. He makes the dust rise from the earth with his swagger. He adds his loud voice to every word I utter. He is my own little self, my Lord. He knows no shame. But I am ashamed to come to thy door in his company. That's the ego. That's the part of us that we have to transcend. That's where we have to go within and recognize who we truly are. And who we are is divine love. When Jesus was asked, who is God? He said, God is love. And he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in me, and I in him. It's just love. That's all Rumi is about. When we go to Ephesus next week, or this week, whenever, it's about love. It's about love for the beloved, love for the divine, love for that place within us that is our excitement. It is our God. It's what God is. Whatever excites you is the part of you that is saying, this is my dharma, this is what I'm here for. And you know what it's always about? It's always about serving. The miser who loves his gold gets no love from the gold. There's no love in gold. The reason the miser is so exquisitely happy with his gold is because of the outpouring of love that he has for it. That's what he feels. When you feel so good about your Mercedes, or you feel so good about this ship, or you feel so good about your great paintings, as I read to you at the beginning of today, the Chinese versus the Byzantines. When you feel so great about these great accomplishments and all that you have, and all that you own, and all that you've defeated, and all the wins that you've had, it's nothing to do with any of that stuff external to you. It's the outpouring of love that you are giving to it. And you can't have love in your life, and you can't give it away unless that's what you have inside. I used to give this example. And I'd have kids sitting out, speaking to thousands of people, and there'd be a few kids sitting here in the front row, and I'd always come out with an orange. And I'd throw the orange up and catch it, and throw the orange up and catch it. And I would say to one of the young children sitting in the front, if I take this orange, and I squeeze it between my hands, right up here, and I squeeze it as hard as I can squeeze it, what's going to come out? And they'd always say, juice. Of course, juice. And I'd say, wait a minute, why? Why, when you squeeze an orange as hard as you can squeeze it, does juice come out? And they'd say, well, it's an orange. So I said, it's not just juice, because you don't get apple juice if you squeeze this, right? You're not going to get grape juice, right? You're not going to get lemon juice. You're not going to get any of that. The only thing you can get out of it is whatever it is. They'd say, yeah, orange juice, orange juice. I said, yeah, but why, when you squeeze an orange, do you get orange juice out of it? And finally, one little kid over here would just go, oh, that's so dumb, because that's what's inside. I said, well, of course. It's because that's what's inside. And someone squeezes you. And someone puts pressure on you. And someone tells you that you're bad, or that you're evil, or they don't like you, or that you're wrong, or that you're miserable, or that you're any of these things. And someone does this to you, and out of you comes anger, and hatred, and bitterness, fear, tension, stress, revenge, bitterness. It's not because of who did the squeezing. You don't get an orange juice out of an orange because of who did the squeezing, or what instrument they use, or how they squeezed it. That's not why you get it. It's because that's what's inside. And if you don't have that inside, and you won't have it inside if you're following your excitement. Because when you're following your excitement, you are aligned with God. It's who you are. And who you are is God. So all you have to do is follow your excitement, follow your passion. And some will say, but if my excitement is to make other people unhappy, or if it's to kill other people, or to do these kind of things, and you see that that's a violation of your original nature. So the only caveat on your excitement is that it has to be aligned with God, because that's what it is, and God is love. So if it's not love, it's really not your excitement. It's really not God. You've moved away from where you originated, because all you have to do is look at a newborn child, look at a new baby. And they are just pure love. Just pure love. Any questions? See you tomorrow. God bless you, and good night.